about that time to talk about new anime coming out this season. I've been doing this for quite some time to pick out at least one anime that you should be watching. And while we have some pretty solid anime for this season, I only pick one. And of course, if you saw the thumbnail, you know what it is. But just to be clear, I don't consider anime that are going into a sequel season or series. So even though you should be watching things such as Re:Zero, Bleach, or Dragon Ball, I simply don't consider those for this type of video. On top of that, I also had another great consideration, which was Uzumaki. But I'm sure by the end of this, we're going to be having a full video about Uzumaki once it finishes. But please forget all that. Right now, we're talking about Dan to Dan, a series that I was really shocked by because I have not read the manga before this. In case you're wondering, I'm only going to talk about episode 1. So I don't know, call that spoiler free, whatever, dude. I want to start this off by saying when you look at Dan to Dan, a lot of the anime promotional art is very similar. And by similar, I mean that it feels as if you've seen it before. Just looking at all three of these anime promotional arts, you could assume that this is a zombie apocalypse type anime. But of course, it's not, and before you go into the comments, you can do a deeper dive and see that this is not a zombie. But of course, it's still going to give you some, I don't know, other being that's not normal type of show. And the easiest thing I can compare Dan to Dan to off of the promotional art itself was Zone 100. And I can tell you right now, Zone 100 kind of wet the bed at the end of the day. Nothing against the series at all, you just could have been better. But again, forget you, because this is about Dan to Dan, a series that has a better chance to survive than others. Checking it out, Dan to Dan does circle around unnatural beings that want to quote unquote possess humans. But we'll get into that later. Dan to Dan follows two main characters in Momo and Tanjiro. That's Tanjiro, I don't care what you say. And both of these characters believe in beings that should not exist. The difference is our main male protagonist, Ken, is a loser. And I use that word lightly because it's not the fact that he's actually a loser, it's more the fact that everyone else around him is a bully. And I'm serious too, they've shown bullying like 3 times so far in the same episode. But because our main protagonist, Ken, is not a knucklehead, he's considered a loser because of it. However, Momo is simply not like that. Instead, our female protagonist has more confidence than any other character in the series. So she's willing to protect others even if she doesn't want to be in the situation. Now both of these characters are going to have crazy trauma behind their life, however, it really brings them together. For good or bad, both of them would naturally never see one another, however, because of the circumstances, they end up finding one another. And that's a good thing because when a series starts up, it really starts up. Halfway through the episodes, you're introduced to these aliens very quickly. Now how did this happen? You know, kids doing stupid things. Due to them both needing to prove that their phobia is real, they decide to put themselves in terrible situations. And as I softly mentioned before, I would say one of their situations is much worse than the other. I'm talking about this looks really crazy. Now from the start, Ken getting possessed by an alien doesn't really seem to be that huge of a deal. I mean, he is cursed, that is one thing. However, he also gets his body back fairly soon. The difference is what happened to Momo feels like it's going to be a bigger phenomenon. I'm just guesstimating here, so please don't take this to heart. Ken being possessed doesn't seem to be because of him as a character. However, when Momo unlocks her psychic potential, it does seem to be because of her own personal abilities. Do you see what I'm saying? It seems that these aliens that look like Swag Bob have more of a reason to want her than anyone else. But they also said that they wanted her banana. I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything, that sounds even crazier because it doesn't make sense what they're asking for. These aliens don't have an issue telling you that they want to have you know what. However, when they say they want a banana, it doesn't make sense. But I guess that's all in the fun of trying to understand what Dan to Dan is trying to provide us. And please, please don't forget that this is a love story. We get teased with just a smidgen of Momo catching some feelings towards the end of the episode. So no matter what your favorite part of the episode is, whether it's seeing Momo and Ken connect trying to find a love option, or even if it's Slim Bob trying to get himself off, Dan to Dan might be one of the best ones to pick up for this season. I've also failed to mention that the studio animating Dan to Dan is Science Saru. And I have to call them out because what they've done so far is actually pretty good. And if you're interested, I'm gonna put some other bangers they've made on the screen. But other than that, that's Dan to Dan and my personal pick for something you should watch this season. And look, just to call a spade, do not be a Twitter fiend. We understand that these scenes can be kind of crazy and are really mature, but you're not gonna get anything fixed online, my boy. So just enjoy the series for what it is and don't run to Twitter saying it's too much 18+ content. And please take that for granted, you get what I'm saying. Now then, if you made it to this point in the video, I'm guessing you're looking for what to watch next, and guess what? You probably missed what happened last season. So go check this video out over here to see what aired last season. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, take care. Peace.